In the Season 16 retrospective, I described it as the year that The Simpsons reached adulthood, that it marked the end of the show radically growing and evolving from era to era. We are now going from year 4 to year 5 of the Al Jean experience. Only 14 more to go. So what now? What the hell is there to talk about The Simpsons Season 17? I confess, I put off this retrospective for so long because I questioned if this was just bland Season 16. Maybe it doesn't have its own distinct style or sensibility. Well, that's where I was wrong. Season 17 has one of the more glaring and obvious overarching themes, arguably more than 14, 15, and 16. No, Season 17 did not change much stylistically in how they write jokes or constructed narratives, but in terms of the stories they wanted to tell, this was a year all about transformation, questioning who the characters are and where they're going. It's very much that earlier reaction of, okay, The Simpsons has reached adulthood. Now what? Season 17 is the year of The Simpsons' identity crisis. So many episodes this year center around some radical character transformation. In Springfield Elementary, we have groundskeeper Willie becoming a distinguished gentleman. Then in another, Lisa disguises herself and enters the world of boyhood so she can take math. Both of these examples explore whether these characters can make it in a totally different world, as well as whether they actually want it. In other cases, the writers play with the status quo and push established characters in new directions. Or, in the case of Kirk and Luann, an old direction. With Sideshow Bob, they gave him a fresh start, with him moving to Italy and starting a family. With some of their long-running storylines wrapping up recently, Season 17 started reshuffling the deck again. Naturally, it had its share of temporary transformations, the classic blank gets a job. Homer becomes the safety salamander and runs for mayor. Homer becomes a god in India. Grandpa becomes a matador. These things are a dime a dozen, happens every year. However, Season 17 took a more character-driven approach to them. Homer only became the safety salamander to atone for his callousness. The Grandpa Matador is cuckoo bananas conceptually, the most gimmicky non sequitur this side of Ralph running for president. But how do we get there? Grandpa reaching the lowest of lows, to the point that he tries to end his life. Sure, these stories do go to weird places, but they are fundamentally based in some kind of personal struggle. The India episode's topical approach tends to be the outlier rather than the trend. This leads to more narratives that deconstruct characters and their core relationships. Marge's son poisoning examines Marge and Bart, questioning how much influence she has over his personality and temperament. Does Marge want Bart to change for her? Homer's paternity coot questions whether Grandpa even is Homer's biological father to begin with. If this new guy is actually his dad, then does Homer and Grandpa's history even mean anything? With Homer and Marge, we get the double whammy of Bonfire of the Manatees and Regarding Margie. In the premiere episode, Marge questions her purpose in life, whether she could be doing more than just taking care of Homer. Spoiler warning, she goes with Homer. In Regarding Margie, she gets a bad case of amnesia and totally forgets who Homer is. It asks the question, could Marge fall in love with him again? Is it just their shared history that binds them together? Spoiler warning, she goes with Homer. I mean, of course she goes with Homer in the end. Now, I'm not in love with them cranking out these contrived soap opera plot devices, but the important thing is that they're finding new angles to explore these dynamics, not content to trot out love triangle number 47. Well, mostly. If you hate Homer-Marge relationship drama, Season 17 is not for you. Even when they're counseling people, they manage to have a falling out. To their credit, most of these examples do have some unique spin to them. Like, handsome manatee guy isn't really trying to steal Marge. This Tabitha Vick situation is a misunderstanding. Really, it's just the Van Houten sabotage that causes a real rift, and even that one is solved by a dumb Act 3 danger set piece. Even though Season 17 asks big questions about its characters, it doesn't necessarily provide big answers. Unfortunately, it struggles in the resolution department, vaguely hand-waving the central question away, or closing with a contrived plot device. Girls Just Want to Have Sums asks about how boys and girls learn, and the environment that shapes them. But at the final summation, Lisa just shrugs and is like, look what I learned in the world of boys. In the Amnesia episode, Marge does discover why she fell in love with Homer, but this isn't how she regains her memory. It's his love of beer that jogs her memory. The Simpsons don't have a big showdown with Sideshow Bob and an exciting escape sequence. Krusty's limo swerves in and whisks them away. There's a strange undercurrent of disinterest sometimes in its stories, almost as if the characters know that we're not meant to care. Like, what is this Homer B plot about his blue pants? Does anyone really care what company he buys from? No, this is an excuse to do jokes about body advertising. At the beginning of Bart Has Two Mommies, Homer strives to win this computer from Marge. But once Ned gives it to him, it's like, yawn, put it in the car, we'll never talk about it again. They even lean into this with Homer's barbell B-plot. Moe is totally into it, trying to turn Homer into an arm wrestling champion, but the whole time, Homer doesn't care and is worrying about Marge. Once again, that's the joke, but characters seem less willing to commit to their stories. The resolution often comes down to, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. Structurally, very little change between seasons 16 and 17. This isn't like the earlier years where they were doing a lot of opening set pieces. There are a couple notable ones, but this year preferred starting out watching TV or getting right into the action. There is an uptick in B-plots. We have Homer's arm wrestling and blue pants I previously mentioned. Also, Patty and Selma kidnap MacGyver, Marge holds a pill-popping yard sale, and Lisa learns Italian from Milhouse. Funnily enough, this is the episode right before their trip to Italy. So good job, Simpsons continuity department. There's definitely an international flavor to season 17, with trips to both Italy and India. Two of their anthology episodes have a heavy emphasis on travel, featuring excursions to tropical islands. In other examples, international cultures come to the world of Springfield, with Grandpa becoming a matador and Marge getting a taste of British humor. Actually, wait, that's unfair to Great Britain. Ricky Gervais just talks at her for 10 minutes. From a jokes perspective, the overall sensibility is mostly set in stone at this point. Like the previous year, this is not an especially subversive season, not prone to do many screw the audience jokes or unexpected swerves. I would say their meta humor game is a bit stronger, with that memorable Family Guy jab, their complaints about October baseball, and the origin story of Professor Jailbird. Season 17 does seem to love body humor though. We get like 3 different variations of hilarious fat jiggling. Homer gets 2 different jokes about painting clothing onto his body. Mr. Burns' smile will haunt our nightmares forever. We get several jokes about characters' drawing ability too. Stuff like Lisa's Daddy and Me book, Homer's drawing of his data, thermostats and phones drawn onto the wall. You gotta give the animators a lot of credit. We like to blah 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 over these middle seasons visually, but there is a lot of expressive and stylish stuff in here. I noticed that season 17 also doubled down on jokes about gender. Some of it is your usual Bugs Bunny cartoony fantasy stuff. Others are like, oh, Ms. Pommelhorse is becoming Mr. Pommelhorse, or Ricky Gervais thinking Patty is a man. Oh look, it's Smithers, famous trans icon for some reason. Also, I think Groundskeeper Willie gets assaulted by nerds because they think he's a woman? What is this, season 13? Sometimes it feels like they're trying to get edgier with their joke writing again, but it often comes off as hilariously quaint. Like they want to be South Park, but are afraid to commit. Like this year, the writers discovered that putting the word bitch at the end of a sentence makes it funny. They'll have Ricky Gervais deliver his painful knock-knock joke and his song lyrics about Lady Di's death. They'll bleep out Homer yelling, "That's bullshit, man!" This joke about Jared from Subway ended up being much edgier than they probably anticipated. Like I said, we're not exactly fainting with horror, but it's interesting seeing them mix this stuff in. I would say this is the most famous joke from season 17. This thing gets memed all the time. Actually, Moe gets a lot of funny moments this year, now that I think about it. My personal favorite is probably this one, where all the numbers are providing cleverly worded puns, and then this guy shows up and blurts out, 27. Best 27 related joke ever. Also, for some reason, hearing Rod Flanders yell, "I'm gay, Daddy, Mrs. Simpson made me gay," is so damn funny to me, mostly for the look that Flanders gives to Marge. It's such a middle school joke, but it works so well. Season 17's joke writing does bug me sometimes in how familiar some of the shtick feels by now. They've repeated plenty of jokes in the past, but there are many moments that trigger my Simpsons superfan brain. Like Marge dialing 911 preemptively on her phone, Lenny charging per axle to park, Bart accusing Lisa of being a witch, Homer somehow driving a bumper car off the track, Homer running off to pee in a non-existent outhouse, a joke about Carmen Electra's boobs. Even Bart's plan to throw this dummy off of a cliff reminds me of a certain something. There's a staleness in general to Season 17 that goes beyond its joke writing. The show's been on for so long that the plots are starting to look like each other. Oh look, another story about Moe coaching Homer at something. Marge babysitting Rod and Todd, just like Lisa. Or how about episodes where Lisa acts out at school, she gets bullied by a group of boys, the family goes on a reality show, and Marge thinks that Homer is cheating with a singer. The Lisa-Marge stuff in the monkey suit feels like Lisa the Skeptic Part 2. Obviously, you can cherry-pick examples from any season, and to be fair, these do have their own spin on them, but we have reached that point where plot elements are getting remixed or expanded into new stories. We are still most certainly in the Al Jean music montage era. Last time I thought we were past the peak of the mountain, but clearly their music usage is like the murder horn. Because this mofo is full of music montages. Full of them. Montages about protests, bike riding, sleigh building, Tahiti vacations, Lisa at school, the OC, Snoopy jokes galore. These montages feel so formulaic by now, like it's an Act 2 requirement. I am more in favor of them doing random musical moments where they think the reference is funny or entertaining. The bullies singing My Sharona is super indulgent, but at least it's fun. Same with the Bollywood dance number, or Car Wash with Burns and Smithers. Season 17 is one of the more musical seasons of this middle era. We also have an entire musical episode in My Fair Laddie, featuring numerous specific parodies. I love the What Flows From Your Nose number so much that I'm always kind of pissed off when Homer interrupts it. I also love hearing Kelsey Grammer belt out that opera at the climax of the Italian Bob, and this might be a scorching hot take, but maybe my favorite moment of the entire season is the Itchy and Scratchy musical. It so perfectly parodies The Lion King while feeling exactly like how Broadway would tackle this subject. Of course Itchy would sing an introspective, heartfelt ballad about hurting Scratchy. To be honest, this musical feels almost out of place in Season 17, because this was not at all a year about the entertainment industry or characters getting famous. It's like the anti-Season 5, with these down-to-earth affairs that don't require celebrity pop-ins. Most of the celebrities who do appear are seen on TV, movies, or the occasional left-handed convention. It's really just Richard Dean Anderson who is the odd man out in this category. Otherwise, all of the major guest stars played original characters. Alec Baldwin as Manatee Guy, Michael York as Homer's dad, Ricky Gervais as Ricky Gervais, Frances McDormand as the new principal, Larry Hagman as the Southern country lawyer, and Mandy Moore as well-appreciated fan service lady. I can't believe I once said this was a forgettable Simpsons episode. Clearly I hadn't watched it in a while. Anyway, enough of fan service. You all didn't click on this video to look at Simpsons hotties. I know what you all really came for. It's time for the secondary character stock watch. So there are a couple of different folks who might have a claim for being king of the hill this time. For example, Chief Wiggum and Moe are easily the most prominent secondary characters. With several plots involving the government, Wiggum often has to get involved. Or he'll show up to do one-off jokes with Ralphie, or run naked in a cemetery. Moe mostly shows up as a sounding board for Homer, or as a man in the crowd. Season 17 might have the most self-harm jokes from Moe as well. He did have a couple story highlights, but was mostly used in supporting roles. Instead, I would argue that Milhouse is the MVP of Season 17. He gets both a status quo change, as well as a B-plot with Lisa. I think Season 17 is where The Simpsons starts taking Milhouse more seriously as a romantic interest for Lisa, doing this storyline and peppering in smaller references here or there. Milhouse is fundamentally a joke character, and that's the majority of his roles, but it seems there is a renewed interest in the dud. Season 17 is more of a Lenny season than a Carl one. They both show up very regularly as satellites to Homer, but Lenny definitely got highlighted more. Congratulations on your new HD TV, by the way. This is a strong Mr. Burns season, mostly thanks to the indie episode and the format bender. We're in the new paradigm of either getting a lot of Mr. Burns, or basically none at all. Flanders was similarly used sporadically, but did manage to be a key player in 2 stories. This feels like one of his most Flanderized years, with his obsessiveness and Bible thumping. We got aggro Flanders this time. Other characters, like Groundskeeper Willie, Grandpa, and Patty and Selma, each got a spotlight episode or B-plot. I think the biggest loser of season 17 is Krusty, who once again got mostly ignored. They gave him one pathetic musical number in Italy, and then let Sideshow Bob upstage him. He's so irrelevant by now that I'm missing his gimmicky Hollywood stories. Maybe he'll come back again soon. Season 17 isn't a great Skinner year either, but at least they're giving him stuff to do again. Unfortunately, most of it still falls in the humiliating or pathetic category. The show has clearly given up on Skinner as any sort of stern authority figure. As for the biggest winner, I'm gonna give it to the 3 bullies, Jimbo Jones in particular. These 3 are all over season 17 for some reason. They're useful sometimes to peer pressure or bully characters to move the plot along, or bullying William H. Macy on TV. For Jimbo, he'll have a commercial running for mayor, or buying drugs from Marge. If you've ever wanted to see Jimbo and Sideshow Mel banter, here's your chance. I think there's an argument for Rich Texan being the biggest winner, as he is prominently featured in more and more episodes. But I'm giving it to Jimbo and the 2 other bullies this time. As for the Simpson family, let's start with the kids. Lisa bounced back from a very businesslike season 16, giving her a mix of personal challenges and tackling the big issues. Like she's the one getting on Grandpa's case about bullfighting and is leading the charge against creationism, but they're balanced out by character-driven adventures where she confronts her fears and helps Willie. Even in a quote-unquote issues episode about gender and math, there was a strong focus on Lisa's personal struggles to fit in. I still think the writers could be having more fun with her during this era, but they did a better job showing off more sides of her personality. Bart's stories seem to mostly revolve around parents, which is very unusual for him. Sure, he teaches Lisa how to be a boy, and leads a mutiny against Principal Skinner, but otherwise his stories paired him with parental figures. He does a prank at school, gets in trouble, and is forced to go on a road trip with Homer. He grows close to Marge and gets accused of being a mama's boy. He even gets kidnapped by a chimp who is working through motherhood issues of her own. Bart is still a troublemaker and has his usual edge, but he does seem to be on a leash. Spoiler warning, it's not going to get better for him anytime soon. I think Homer's the most well-rounded Simpson family member this year. They gave him plenty of wacky and lighthearted storylines where he can be his effervescent self. Sometimes we'll get the more aggressive and angry Homer, ready to start a fight. But we also get neurotic and thoughtful Homer, where he worries about his relationship with Marge, is willing to put on a stupid costume to prove something to Lisa. He works through his feelings of maybe Grandpa not being his real dad. The only problem is that these relationship stories are fairly shallow and surface level. Season 17 asks compelling questions about Homer, but doesn't dig too deep into him. Whereas Marge is the exact opposite. Season 17 did the deep dive into Marge's personality, but didn't give us much variety. This was a year of loneliness and soul-searching for Marge. Early on, we get the double whammy of riding her tandem bike alone, and then Marge wishing she had some friends. When she had amnesia, she questions why she even married Homer. Or she's off trying to find a greater purpose in life. Heck, one of her parenting stories doesn't even involve the Simpsons kids. I think season 17 is one of the weirdest Marge years in general, but that's honestly one of my favorite things about it. It wasn't pigeonholing Marge into strictly supporting roles, it seemed especially interested in her perspective, and it's a breath of fresh air. Wow, it feels weird sounding this upbeat about season 17 of The Simpsons, because I've never had especially warm and fuzzy feelings toward it. It took me 6 months to get around to this retrospective because I was that unexcited about re-watching it. I never understood exactly why I felt this way until recently. Season 17 was airing when I first started talking about The Simpsons online. Here is my very first post, a review of Bonfire of the Manatees. Oh, little Jimmy, you were so young and naive, scoring this a 3 out of 5. This was my first experience of watching the show weekly and engaging in the discourse about where the show is going. Basically, season 17 is when the internet poisoned my brain and I started watching the show more critically. So, to be honest, I have no idea how much worse season 17 is than 16. I'm not even sure if it is worse after watching it. My sense of perspective is so out of whack with this one. You can definitely feel the age of The Simpsons when watching it, with how many vaguely familiar plot points and jokes that they recycle. You watch some of these, and they feel like remixes of more popular episodes. There's a tiredness that you can feel, like you can tell that the writers are exhausted from working on the movie. At the same time, I appreciate its more thoughtful and down-to-earth approach to its story selection. It wasn't as interested in doing these large-scale and dramatic adventures like the previous year. Season 17 is like the introverted and quirky younger brother to Season 16. It's a little weirder, more likely to go on some unexpected tangent or use soap opera plot devices. I think some of these experiments are too gimmicky or aren't executed well, but I can't accuse the writers of churning out 22 workmanlike episodes that don't try things. I like how willing they were to transform our favorite characters into something different, strip away what we thought we knew. If The Simpsons is going to have an identity crisis, why not have it in season 17? Geez, I'm starting to talk myself into the idea that maybe this thing is underrated. Now I know I've spun myself into circles. Let me know in the comments what you think of season 17 and its overall style. Was this a step down from the previous year, or are all these late teen seasons mostly the same? I really need your input on this one, because I have no idea how internet poisoned I was at this point. I'll be back next time for the top 10 list. Gonna warn you, this is gonna be one of the weirder rankings, so look forward to some hot takes and questionable opinions. This is the Season 17 way. As always, thanks for watching.